Why is there an armed revolution going on in the Philippines? After Filipinos overthrew over 300 years of Spanish rule, Spain sold the Philippines to the US for $20 million. Filipino revolutionaries continued to fight for their freedom against the US for the next 16 years. Over 120,000 US troops were sent to the Philippines, and up to 1.5 million Filipinos were killed. The US has had an extensive presence on the islands ever since. With abundant natural resources, a cheap labor force, and a large market for American products, the Philippines is a strategic location for US economic and military interests in the Asia-Pacific. After World War II, the US granted independence to the Philippines but maintained control over the country through military and economic agreements. The country's economy has been prevented from developing ever since. In the countryside, most of the land peasants work on is owned by landlord dynasties and US corporations. In the cities, jobs are scarce and unstable. In the 1960s, students began organizing with workers and peasants to revive the unfinished revolution for genuine independence. By the end of the decade, the Communist Party of the Philippines was re-established and an armed struggle was launched, beginning a civil war that has carried on for more than 45 years. In response to massive protests and civil unrest, the dictator Ferdinand Marcos declared a state of martial law that lasted 14 years. In defiance to heavy repression from the government, the New People's Army quickly spread throughout the countryside. Even after the dictatorship was overthrown, wealthy landlords and business partners of foreign monopolies remained in power and continued to abuse government positions to enrich their personal wealth. Continued US militarization led to increased violence against women and children. An overwhelming majority of Filipinos forced the US military bases to close in 1992. But in recent years, the Philippine government agreed to allow the US military to conduct annual combat exercises and use its military bases to protect foreign business interests. The US aims to pressure China into opening up its markets. To this day, US troops are continuously deployed for operations in the Philippines. Environmental destruction brought by foreign mining and logging operations displaced thousands of indigenous people and peasants. In recent years, unprecedented super typhoons exposed the Philippine government's ineffectiveness and neglect of its people. People continue to organize nationwide to replace the current system with a new people-led government that would redistribute land ownership to the poor and build national industries to develop jobs and the local economy. The New People's Army is currently laying the foundation for a new democratic government in over 110 guerrilla fronts present in 71 out of 81 provinces in the Philippines. Peace talks between the revolutionary government and the Philippine government have resumed under President Duterte after 15 years of being stalled. These peace negotiations seek to resolve the socio-economic roots of the armed conflict. In August 2016, each side declared a separate indefinite ceasefire as an act of goodwill. However, the talks are in danger of failing. Duterte has yet to fulfill his promise of releasing over 400 political prisoners, and the Philippine military continues to harass civilian communities in violation of its ceasefire. Meanwhile, crushing poverty and inequality continues to push more people to join the National Democratic Revolution in the Philippines.